What's going on, guys? Will Sherlin again with Gutter Fighting Secrets Tactical Podcast. This is going to be Tactical Podcast number 9. Today, we've got a good buddy of mine actually coming on, Beret Leslie. Now, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I know Beret from the Tactical Response Civilian Contractor courses. I met him last year at the CQB course. It was a great time. Beret is a really fucking interesting guy. He actually is, believe it or not, kind of the closest thing that you're going to find to a modern day Knights Templar. I'll explain what I mean by that. Now, Beret has a background in film and math, but besides from having a background in filmmaking and math, he also has a background in meditation and like esoterics. This lends him a really interesting perspective on the whole warrior ethos and the whole experience of life in general. Now, I was talking to him at the contractor course, and he was explaining to me his outlooks on life and various things. Apparently, so Beret, after he kind of learned a lot about esoterics and got out of film school and everything, decided that he wanted to learn how to fight. Not just fight like boxing in the ring, but fight like a warrior on the battlefield. So he bought Tactical Response's Year of Fighting program. For those of you who don't know, you can actually go and buy like a year pass to every single course that Tactical Response offers, and that's like a one price for everything that they offer. Beret took them up on that and literally took every course that they offer. Beret, you probably took a bunch of those courses a bunch of different times, if I'm correct, right?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
So he really threw himself all in when it came to the Year of Fighting. Beret literally just, without joining the military, made himself a fucking warrior. And, you know, he's taken the small unit tactics, the sniper course, the CQB multiple times. I'm probably missing a couple in there. I think the only one that you didn't take is the medical package, the contractor medical package, right?
Yeah, and I missed a couple of their, like, fast and accurate. A couple of them that weren't really offered.
Yeah. But for those of you guys who haven't trained at Tactical Response with James Yeager, I highly recommend that you do so. I've taken multiple of their contractor courses, small unit tactics, CQB direct action, which is throwing up ambushes and stuff like that. It's the real deal. You're not going to get any more realer than this. You know, most courses out there that will train you in CQB and small unit tactics, they're not doing it with live ammunition, stuff like that. But, you know, James really believes in the most realistic approach to get you ready for combat and action that could possibly be. Obviously, James was a contractor over in Iraq during the early 2000s, came out, wanted to provide civilian contractors going overseas the most realistic training that he could, which is kind of where Tactical Response came about, and these contractor courses specifically. Even if you can only get to like the fighting rifle or fighting pistol, you're going to learn more in 2-3 days there than you will in like a week of some other bullshit course. Not that other courses are bullshit necessarily, but hey, with all of that being said about Tactical Response out of the way, let's jump in here. And Beret, can you give us any more information before we get started with you, man, like about Tactical Response in general? You know, I know that you're teaching over there, or not teaching, but you're helping, you know, I guess assistant instructor or something like that. First of all, what do you do with Tactical Response now, and can you give us more information about, you know, the training program over there in Camden?
So I don't teach with them. I help with the classes sometimes.
Okay.
When they have some overflow, or a teacher have a bigger class or something like that. So I don't know what you call it, like a range dude or something. I'm not sure what the term is.
Yeah, I guess you could say you're basically an assistant over there, and you help out.
Yeah, but anyone who's an alumni is considered can help out, right?
Gotcha.
Can come to the classes and help out.
Okay.
So if you've taken the class, like I've taken the classes, most of the classes multiple times. So, you know, I'll just go over and help out Jay or something when they need an extra person.
Gotcha. So you're being role players in the shoot house, stuff like that.
Yeah. That's probably the best part, I would say. Like if you do, like if you're doing force on force, like if you're sitting out and you're shooting at a target or anything like that, it's not shooting back at you, right?
Right.
And it's not moving and all those fun things that you get to do in the shoot house, right? When you get to do sims around, and it doesn't hurt. There's no those types of things. But like when you go in there, like it changes your psychological perspective. It's probably where I learned the most during my year of fighting, and probably where I grew, had the most growth. I guess like I didn't really go in looking for growth, but kind of. I mean, I did, just not the kind of growth that I got. Kind of went in thinking, I would be, I'd have, like ninja skills, and be physically better, and all those types of things. And that helped or happened like 1,000%. Maybe regressed a little bit on the physical side, but on my martial skills or gun handling skills, I'm over 1,000% better than when I went in. But where the real growth happened was like psychological, and that's really why I went in for, or took the year of fighting, was for the mindset, because that's the number one thing they teach is mindset. So it's mindset, tactics, skills, and gear, right? And mindset being the key thing. Like my mindset completely changed. Like the first week of courses I took, fighting pistol alone, I think will change about enemies. Anyone who carries a gun on a daily basis, like, should take that course. It will definitely change your mindset as to why you carry a pistol, how you carry a pistol, how you use it, how you fight with it. It trains you how to actually fight with it, so shoot for the paper targets on that.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I see, so many guys, it's the downfall of CCW guys, I guess you could say, is, getting your pistol, thinking you can manipulate it, clear malfunction, but you're still standing there static at the range shooting a piece of paper that's not moving or shooting back. But like you're saying, as soon as you get in, using simunitions and the shoot house and all of that, really does change your perspective on things. And I like, Tactical Response's motto about mindset. Can you give us kind of an expanded, your thoughts, a little bit expanded about, mindset? What does that mean? Not only to tactical response, but to you. Like, what does mindset actually mean?
Okay, so that's a pretty deep one for me. But so the way they talk about mindset, right, is they say mindset is the attitude by which you solve problems.
Okay.
Right? So in their case, they're looking at it in self-defense, life or death situations, right?
Right.
And there are some, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but they have some scenarios in some of their classes that are proprietary to them, but that are driven specifically to change your mindset and teaching you new ways to think and how to think about a fight. Like that there are no rules in a fight. You're fighting to win. There's a little saying of something along the lines of, what is it? The only fair fight is the one you lose. So that's the idea, is getting you into the mindset to win the fight, whatever means that is, and to stay in the fight. So like when you're doing a drill, in some of the advanced classes, you'll be shooting behind a barrel. You got to change your position, do all these things. But then they'll say, you're shot in the right arm. You've got to put a tourniquet on while you're staying in the fight. So you've got to return fire while you're putting a tourniquet on and figuring out things to do with the gun, how to move, lay down cover for your buddy, those types of things. But never giving up and always staying in the fight. Like, the gun goes down, move to your next weapon, get out of there. Whatever whatever the situation calls for, being able to adapt and do that. So I say that's probably not the best explanation of what they're talking about, but it gives you a basic understanding.
Yeah, that's a great explanation, to be honest with you. I think that, so many people out there, again, they train, but then the mindset's not really there, right? Stay in the fight. If you get shot, you're still alive. Stay in the fight. If you need to tourniquet your arm, you're still in the fight. James always is big on that. I always hear him saying that, stay in the fight, you're still in the fight. Get ready for the fight, all that stuff. And it's a different perspective, but it really, when you train at tactical response, you come away with such a sharper mindset, such a sharper, intuitive way of being able to think about the fight, think about fighting in general. A lot of people think about guns and gunfights and everything as something kind of different than the martial arts, but no, it's the same thing. It's one and another. It's just a different discipline of martial arts. It's a fight. It's a gruesome, freaking bad thing, and there are no rules. So again, like you were saying, if you play by the rules, you could die very easily. So, what does mindset mean to you? Now, I realize I'm opening a can of worms there because you are a deep guy, but we got all freaking day here, man. Can you give us some of your kind of like spiritual, funky thoughts about like what mindset means specifically to you?
Well, I'll give you first, before I give you the deeper side, I'll give you a semi-deep.
Okay.
So, like, one of the biggest things that I learned coming to the fighting, I had been stabbed when I was 18, roughly.
Okay.
I'm 40 now, and I lost use of my right leg below the knee. Had to relearn how to use it.
Jeez.
Have drop foot and got stabbed in the right testicle. And so, like, in that scenario of when that happened, like I was in, like I was at a party, and I was still in high school. My brother was in the other room, and I just talked to a guy, like an old church buddy, and he'd been talking about, like, I was on the football team, the wrestling team, all this stuff. I was talking to him like I'd been getting into some fights lately, and stuff like that. He's like, maybe you shouldn't fight. And sure enough, I turned around, go in the next room, and this guy is attacking my brother. And my brother was too drunk to move, to get up, and this guy was like 6'7", had his hand up in the air, was coming at him. And literally, like, my intuition, the first thing inside of me was the first, like, primal thoughts, instinct, intuition, whatever you want to refer to it as, gut instinct, was grab a chair, hit that dude over the head. There's knives on the table, stab that motherfucker, kill him. And I was like, whoa, like, that's a little fucked up, and I started thinking, and I was like, these are my brother's friends. It's their party. Like, I don't want to cause a scene, and like, I ended up grabbing the guy and, like, putting him in a headlock because I knew the headlock.
Mm-hmm.
And he stuck a knife in my leg immediately.
Jeez.
Like, he was going to stab my brother. So, like, I didn't see a knife, but, like, instinctually I knew something was really wrong. But I didn't listen to my instinct. And it ended up costing me, you can go back and do all those things or whatever, but that was kind of like what happened. Whereas I didn't go into a fight to fight. I went in to break up a fight, all these types of things.
Yeah.
These things that are not fights. And, that always kind of stuck with me. But when I was in the shoot house, like, I'd been in the shoot house on and off throughout the year, taking the classes, and I was helping out. I've been helping out with them. So, like, I think I know all the routines and what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I got a little bit full of myself or whatever. And so I went there and I was taking active shooting. I hadn't taken it because they hadn't offered it, or I'd missed it. But it was, so I was like, oh, this is going to be easy peasy or whatever. And and I go in there, and it's the first. I think it's the first scenario maybe, and they talk about before you go in, they give you all these mindset lectures or whatever. Part of it was live hero, dead hero.
Hmm.
It was I'm trying to remember the scenarios. It was live hero, dead hero, or live. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Live hero, dead hero, live coward, dead coward.
Hmm.
Right, and they're talking about it, and the lecture goes along something like, "I would rather be the hero," like and like I'm over there thinking like I hear life twice. That's all I heard. I don't care if it's a coward or a hero. One of you is living. I'm gonna go with the living, and so like I go back there, and so like I'm thinking in my head, like would I, if there's gonna be an active shooter situation, would I go back in there and shoot, and like intellectually I build up in my mind that I would not.
Hmm.
Like there's no one in there. I don't care. Whatever the reasoning was that I'd come up with was like I'm not going in. And so you go in some scenario, you leave the room, you're leaving the room, the active shooting ends, and before I realized what had happened, like I'm in there shooting people, doing the correct things, you know, drawing correctly, looking at the front sight, slow trigger press, like just shooting people, doing the thing, moving around, following the. And I'm like, oh crap! Like when it gets, about halfway through, we're done. I was like, damn it, how did I get in? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I did the right thing
Yeah.
for the scenario, and I was following my instincts again. And that part that I'd lost like 20 years ago, paying attention to my own instincts, doing what I know is correct, or what I'm saying, like the thing that just happens when your intuition
Yes.
or whatever hits. And so that was like a huge growth moment for me. I got back something that I had lost, a part of myself that I had lost like 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I didn't. That wasn't something I could plan for coming for the year of fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, I want to get back that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe some deep down shadow self aspect of me, maybe, but I didn't. It wasn't like on my to-do list in year of fighting.
Of course, of course, but no, I mean, you literally, like, you signed up for that year of fighting really not knowing exactly what it was. I mean, obviously, you had been a wrestler, you had had some experience, you'd been stabbed, all of that type of stuff. You're a tough guy, but you signed up for the year of fighting not knowing exactly what you're getting into. You just know that somewhere within yourself you need to do it for your personal growth, whatever your psychological. You ended up getting so much more than just training. Now, obviously, like you were saying, you didn't anticipate wanting to go in that room. Shit was happening. An active shooter was in there. Before you even fucking knew it, you had been in there. You got on your front sights. You were operating correctly. You were taking the correct movements and the correct everything. And you didn't even know until halfway through that you had done that. That's what training, the proper training, does. It makes you into an efficient machine to just go and fight without thinking about it. But you could never have known that you were going to get that part of yourself back that had been, you could say, taken away from you, or misplaced or lost even all those years ago. And yet here you go. It really shows there is more synchronicity to life sometimes than we can really imagine or know about, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So, and that's the synchronicity, or the second nature, or action without thought type of scenario was something that I didn't really fully understand. I heard it all the way through the year. People would talk about like, when you get to the place to where when you need your gun and it just magically appears
Hmm.
in your hand, that's when you will feel as though you've kind of gotten to a next level, right? And then like I posted a Facebook comment or whatever. I don't remember how it came. James mentioned it in a lecture or something, but he talked about it briefly. I hadn't really heard him. Maybe he'd been talking about it. I wasn't listening. But he mentioned it, and I asked him, and he followed up with it on a Facebook comment. in the alumni group, all those things. But like, it was the stages by which it's I can't think of what it's called right now, but it's kind of the stages of learning, and it has to do with. So I'll walk you through it. So it's like it has a very clear name. I can't remember what's unconscious incompetency.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about here?
I have heard this before, but yeah, no. By all means, it'd be good for you to refresh my memory.
Okay, so it's unconscious incompetent, and then it's conscious incompetency, and then conscious incompetency. So it's got 4 stages.
Yeah.
Where you want to get to is where you're unconscious competency. So it's kind of like your first stage is with carrying a gun, right? It would be okay. I have a gun. I got my CCW. You know what I'm saying? And like I took the class and like you're just like, dude, I can defend myself. This is how it works. You know, like I know everything. I've shot all the paper.
Right.
And then and so you don't realize what you don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Unconsciously incompetent, right? And then you see some other people like drawing their pistol, and, moving, and doing all these things. You're like, whoa, dude, maybe I should learn some of that. And so you do.
That would be conscious incompetent, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So it's so you're becoming conscious that you're incompetent, right? Like you've taken some training or something like that, and then so what you're doing is you've seen that you don't know these things,
Right.
and then you can train yourself. You can take some training. You can get yourself to a level, and so and you'll get to the point where you're consciously competent. And what I mean by that is like I can draw my pistol correctly. I can move. I can do my reloads. I can focus on the front side. I can slowly press the trigger. I can do all those things, but I have to do them slowly, and I have to focus on them, and I have
Yeah, you've got to think about it while you're doing it.
Yeah, so you're doing that, and then eventually you get to the point where it's consciously incompetent, where you're the thing happens, you pull the guns out, and you're shooting people, and you're doing all the things correctly, slow trigger press, and all that's happening just instinctive, to where it becomes second nature. So you've done so many reps to where it's just second nature. It's like it's literally like when you're a baby and you're trying to move your hand, like it's all weird. But like now, if you move your hand, like you're not even thinking about moving your hand; it just moves with your mind. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, the other metaphor I've heard for that is like I have a friend, Scott Bolin, who really is a really good mentor in the martial arts, not only for me, but he teaches a lot about this type of stuff. He always uses the metaphor about a kid, right? Trying to learn how to tie his shoes. At first, he can see his father tying his shoes, but he can't tie them himself. Then he kind of like can tie it like sort of a little bit, but it still looks ugly and sloppy and it doesn't really get tied. Then he can tie them, but it takes him a long time to tie them, like maybe a minute for each shoe. Then one day he grows up and he's like 20, 30, 40 years old, and it takes him a second. He ties a shoe and he's done. He doesn't even really realize he had done it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of another analogy I had heard for this. But I really like the way that you tied it into pistol craft and pistol shooting, firearms in general, or training in general. That is kind of an astute insight, I guess you could say. But James is an astute man, so it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So I mean that was the progression that kind of I went through, and then when I was in the shoot house that day, and I was just doing the things, you know what I'm saying? It was like, oh, it's just happened.
And I bet that you really had a very satisfied feeling when you kind of had that aha moment, like I've gotten there. Like maybe not all the way completely, because I don't know if any of us will ever completely get there, right, to the level we want to be. But more or less, you're a trained killer, man. You're a trained warrior, and that's got to feel pretty good.
Well, I don't see myself that way, but like the what do you call it? It was more. It was when that happened. like it took some self-reflection. You know what I'm saying? Because like it really brought up a lot of those deep things about. It reminded me of how my mindset had shifted. You know what I'm saying?
Now, how did you get from sitting on your ass meditating every day to the decision that you want to go and learn all of this crazy shit?
So there's many different ways to look at it, but so in my mind they're not different. Is the short. So the reason I got interested in guns was I was living on the south side of Chicago and I needed a gun. Looked up Jim. I came across Tim Morris shotgun classes because I could have a shotgun. Then when I moved back, got a pistol. The training was pretty bad. Like it wasn't bad. I got some training. Got my concealed carry. Wasn't comfortable, and ended up. The lady who was teaching me was like, she kept talking about how she'd go to Walmart. People try to rob her. And I'd be like, she's like, well, I need to learn this new gun skill. And I'd be like, I don't think you need to, I think you need to quit going to Walmart. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you might that stuff. I think going after the right. But like, so like I got on the web and like that's how I found Tactical Response, or how I decided to go down there, because I realized like she'd been going down there getting some of the training, just kind of teaching some of it. But as far as how meditation and this go together, so that's the thing that kind of brought me. But they're the same. Like if you go back and you're looking for these, what drives me is peak experiences. Flow states, the elevated state of awareness. And if you go back in history and you want to look at where these things are written down, you look like I got I did a Vedic science degree, whatever that's worth.
Wow.
Like, so that's why looking at Sanskrit and the Vedas and those types of things, and so went all the way into that realm. And found the good and the bad and the ugly. And in this realm, like, so there's two things. If you want to look back, you look at military traditions and you look at religious traditions, and that's where these types of experiences are talked about historically. Because on the battlefield, like even in the Vedas, like I think it's the Ramayana or whatever the story is, the big story, where they're on the battlefield. I was talking about how to stay enlightened on the battlefield. But that's where the two can kind of overlap, see them overlap. But when you're, like if you're in a fight, you're out on the battlefield, like these elevated states of awareness just come about. Like people talk about, seeing the bullet fly by and reading the shell casing as it went by, and that type of stuff. The brain is operating at a higher level in battle. And the same thing is true of deep meditative states. You're elevating your awareness to a higher level. And the physiological responses are similar. And that's, so like, kind of where like I'm taking a class, the Flow Genome Project right now. What they talk about is moving from mythology to psychology to biology, to neurobiology. So, like, it used to be that these experiences were mythical, and like stories of on the battlefield, these freaking gurus up in the mountains, hiding out in caves. And these people have them. And then, like, there's the idea of applying psychology to, okay, well, it's a psychological view that this person's mind is working this way, to where, like, with science, we've gotten to a point where it's like, no, actually, like, you can measure the signals in the brain, and it has a correlating physical state, like an emotional state has or a psychological state has a correlating physiological state. So you can have, so that's what mindset is for me, literally, quite literally. Like it's getting the mind to that state and maintaining that state indefinitely, maintaining that mindset, where people refer to it as enlightenment, flow states, those types of things. And the signature of it is, so you can sit, you can meditate, close your eyes, follow your breath, breathing in, breathing out, right? And what happens is the mind starts to settle down. And as the mind settles down, what happens is your sense of self, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all those types of things start to settle down. You start to see the underlying nothingness that's occurring. And that state is measured. You can measure that. Anyone after a few minutes of meditating, you can measure that state of the brain, most of it. And it'll be of brain currents. Measure the electrical signals in the brain start to sync up. Now, it's like a muscle, right? I can sit here, I can train that muscle. I send electrical signals, blood, whatever, move that muscle. I rip it a little bit by lifting weight, and then it grows. I feed it the right nutrition, it grows back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bigger over time. Give it enough rest, all those. So the neurons in the brain are similar. You have an experience with it, right? Like experience changes the brain. So I have that subtle state of self-awareness for a moment. And over time, what will end up happening is neurons will start growing to repeat that experience so that I can maintain the brain. So if I want to maintain that experience 24 hours a day, right? I want to have that nothingness, that sense of self, internal sense of self, expanded sense of self, whatever. After 20,000 hours, this is what the studies, the only real studies are on Tibetan monks. And what it shows is basically like these guys, that's enlightened, right? It's there 24 hours a day. That means that those coherent brainwaves never go away.
Wow.
And so that's the mindset for me. Like the mindset is such that I'm in a fight every single moment for my own awareness, and I have to maintain that.
That's so deep, man. I told you guys this guy was like a modern freaking Knights Templar, and if we look at it, it does make sense because the samurai, even the ninjutsu of old, the Templars, all of these warriors had one thing in common: is they did a lot of meditation, they did a lot of prayer, and that definitely can put your mind in a certain wavelength or whatever where you are simply operating more efficiently. Now, let me ask you this, bro. When it comes to living in that state, that flow state, 24 hours a day, now, is that healthy? Can an individual get burnt out of living in that flow state?
So the short answer would be there's not enough people to know.
Okay.
Just because the nature of the beast, right? Like if it takes 20,000 hours to get people there currently, right, through natural techniques of meditation, we only have a very small sample size.
Yeah.
And these people aren't. And then you gotta define what is healthy. Right? Like these dudes are just basically like whatever Tibetan monks are doing, like chopping wood, getting water.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
they're not inventing iPhones. And like is inventing an iPhone, like the people who do that, are they healthy? Probably not. Like they're probably working long hours, missing sleep.
Yeah.
Malnutrition, eating drinking freaking energy drinks.
Oh yeah.
Eating crap ramen noodles and what techies do. And so I mean, like, I guess relative. It's relative. the health scale is relative, but
Sure.
I guess the way I would say is like I would say it's going after more life, right? Like you're having like the way I look at it is in every breath you have basically three options, right? Like you're gonna breathe, hopefully, but like if you're gonna breathe, right? Like so what happens is I take my awareness and I put it on my own breath, right? And as I put it on my own breath, I alter my awareness. I become aware of my awareness. So I know it sounds sickly, but the idea is I breathe in, keeping my awareness on my breath, right? And by doing that, what ends up happening is I'm not controlling is the bad word, but I'm putting my attention on my breath. It's moving it in a particular direction and changing it. Like I can change the pattern of my breath. You know, I breathe in for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, do like tactical breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, or by doing that, what happens is I'm bringing awareness, I'm increasing my level of awareness. And it gets kind of abstract, hard to explain. But so what ends up happening is by just bringing awareness to the simplest thing, just a involuntary action that happens on the body through your sympathetic or autonomic nervous system. I think autonomic, I get it backwards, but so you're kind of connecting the two. And I don't remember what the question was, but yeah.
No, it's all good, man. The question was basically, shit. Now I kind of forgot myself, but I think we were talking about is it healthy to live in that flow state 24 hours a day? And you were kind of answering the fact that we don't know, but when you do go ahead and operate like this, it's actually not as hard to do as somebody might think. And this was going to be the next question that I was going to bring up anyway, is for guys out there who kind of want to experience this flow state, maybe just give themselves the tactical edge. Could you give us any kind of methodology, just simple to do, either at home or even, before or while you're at the range or something like that, that would be able to get us kind of closer to operating effectively, efficiently, while we are going about our daily routines?
So, I mean, they teach you tactical breathing probably at firefighting or EMS.
Yeah, and actually, while I was doing escape and evasion, that was something they brought up as well to control your adrenaline state. When you've got a hood or something over your head and you're all worked up, is like you were saying, 4 seconds in, hold, and then 4 seconds out, and that would start to bring down your heart rate, kind of fix up your sympathetic nervous system so that you could start to think about how you could get out and how you're going to survive through this rather than just be in that panic state. So that is something I'm familiar with.
Yeah, so the idea is that what happens is it's like the analogy I give is that of a bird dog, right?
A bird dog.
Like a bird dog.
Okay.
Purebred bird dog for hunting.
Sure.
Like if you don't train that dog, like you get a puppy and if you don't train him, that dog will train you.
Yes.
And so it's the same. The mind is the same way. Mind being the experience, brain being the physical organ. And like, if you don't control your mind, it will control you. And so, so people who are caught up in their emotions, their thoughts, their feelings, these types of things, it's controlling them. Right? Like if you're angry and can't control yourself and you're breaking things or you're attacking someone out of hate and anger, right? It's an emotional thing. It's not a conscious, this is how this is going to happen, or based on training or something like that, right? And so, so just by just doing tactical breathing, I think you could breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and just do that for 4 minutes.
Okay.
And that's about as simple as you can get. And like you're saying, what happens is, so there's a corresponding emotional state. To each emotional state, there's a corresponding physiological state.
To each emotional state, there's a corresponding physiological state.
I'm not saying it's a one-for-one, but I'm saying you can think of it in those terms. Right?
Sure, sure.
So like if I'm happy, my heart will have a particular level of coherence. Like electrical signals in my heart will have a particular level of coherence. My brain will exhibit particular patterns of firing. So there is a corresponding physiological state to those emotional states, right? Just as there's a corresponding or psychological states to a physiological state. So same thing with like staying in that flow. And so the more flow that you can, the more times you can put your body in that physiological state, the more it'll go back there. And so that's a simple way to do it. It's just the tactical breathing. You can do different types of meditation. So like tactical breathing is good when you know you're going to a thing. Like say you're a firefighter, like you're going to the fire. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, you got that pre-game jitters going on.
Yep.
And you don't want the mind to just go crazy and get out of whack. So you got to, give it a direction. And the mind's very simple, and it doesn't seem that way when you're experiencing things. But it needs a simple task, and like the simplest thing you can bring your awareness to is your breath. And so, like just bringing it to the breath, it'll put the lungs in balance, right? The oxygen going in, which puts the heart in balance, which connects to the vagus nerve, which puts the brain in balance, and so it syncs it all up, putting that physiological state there. And so, and that's when you're talking about is it healthy? Well, if you're putting the body in a state where it's balanced, right? Like I would argue, yes, it's healthy. If you're putting the body and the brain and everything synced up in coherence 24 hours a day, yeah, I would say that's super healthy. I would say that it's so healthy that we don't have a flavor for it.
Right.
You're saying it's like eating your green beans after all you've been doing is eating like Macs, Big Mac, Whoppers and stuff. You're like, ooh, this is nasty. Like, is that even good for me? Like that's kind of my perspective on that, because that's that question. People ask me that a lot. They're like why would you even want to do that? And I'm like, like it's like trying to explain to someone like it's like trying to explain to a kid who's never had sex, or like he's like, why would you want to touch a girl like that? Like,
Trust me, man, you will.
It's pretty cool, man. It's like the coolest thing going.
That's really cool, man. I'm really glad that you were able to come on here and talk a little bit about this, dude. This is really good shit. And I mean, I know that I'm familiar with this from, reading about ninjutsu and all of that stuff and talking with you as well. But to hear you talk about this, man, not a lot of guys are talking about this. I know it is something, like you were saying, like the master up on the hill who knows this kind of shit. And he can freaking, like, fight 3 dudes at a time. But, the apprentice has to learn for 20, 30, 40, 50 years before he can get to that level. But you're saying no, absolutely not. You can put yourself in a flow state with simple techniques and training, but more importantly, your mindset is going to help you become a way better warrior than simply, going ahead and going through the motions and, doing the training. But if you can really focus your mind on the task and making yourself a better person, better warrior in general, it's not that difficult, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's where it comes back to like the tactical response definition that they use for mindset. Like I'm not saying for one Webster or whatever. But their definition is the attitude by which you solve problems. And so one of the things is that, like, you can't even attempt to solve a problem if your mindset is not. You know what I'm saying? Like
100%. 100%.
If it's outside your paradigm, you'll walk into a room like the dude with having the knife, the stabbing, was outside of my paradigm.
Yes.
Like I couldn't imagine him having the knife, right? So in that case, I wasn't prepared for the fight by any means. But it's like if you go into a situation and your mindset is incorrect, you don't even have a chance at it. You know, even with the correct mindset, you definitely still lose. But
yeah.
You don't even stand a chance with the wrong mindset.
But again, it goes back as well to being able to have that inner stillness to listen to your intuition. I mean, you mentioned the fact that your initial intuition in that particular circumstance when you got stabbed is grab a fucking chair and hit him over the head and be done with it. But then, your mind got in the way of blah, 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 don't cause a scene. But if you had that inner stillness that you have now, combined with, the knowledge, but even fucking put the knowledge out the window, man. If you had that inner stillness to be able to just trust your intuition, maybe you would have hit the guy over the head with the chair, knocked him out, and been done with it.
Well, yeah, and a place where these two overlap, the clearest for me is say I'm trying to sit on my front sight, right? And I'm trying like shooting is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? And so all you're doing is you got a good grip, right? You're in line with the body, all those things. Keeping your eye on the front sight, right? Lining it up where you want it. Slowly pressing the trigger, right? That's like three or four things.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's simple, but it's not easy. And usually what's happening is it's a mind thing. Like people are they're trying to look over their front sight and try to see where the bullet hits. Or there's like two or three things that are usually happening, and they're usually not. They are physical because they've trained that way for so long, but they're mental because like it's the mind wanting to see where the bullet is hitting, and it's not just focusing.
Right.
So if you could calm your mind down, not pay attention to that emotion, and focus it where you want it, you would be able to train and be able to perform better quicker. So that's where the two can overlap, is clearing the mind to train. That assumes that you're training correctly.
Yes.
But that's, when you're training the mind, you're clearing the mind to train correctly. I think that's where the two can really overlap. So like if you were doing, do some tactical breathing, do your exercise, whatever it is, do your shooting, really focusing on one aspect like trigger pull, focusing on the front sight, those types of things. And then, go back, set the gun down, reholster the gun, whatever you do, and do another set of the tactical breathing to where you're only focusing on your breath, and training the mind to focus on one singularity thing, and training the physiology to you're training the physiology to know that feeling of calmness, and applying that calmness to your training.
And that's such an astute thing. I just want to re-interject that real quick for everyone at home. It is stilling the mind so that you can start training correctly. And I think that is such an important thing that is so overlooked. If you can utilize this tactical breathing, it doesn't necessarily have to be tactical breathing, but in any regard to still your mind so that you can start training correctly is such a key thing. It's like Bruce Lee said, be like water, right? Water can crash or it can flow, but if you still your mind, you can be like water. And that is so vital, so important, so key. What you just said there, Beret, is to start training correctly. You have to just be able to quiet your mind. Take 2-3 minutes, 4 max, and do it the right way. I like that.
Yeah, it's and you'll see that like as you when you get to help in those classes, like that, seeing it from that perspective. Like I teach meditation, and you learn, like when you're being taught, it's one level, right? Like you're learning things, and it's new to you. You're taking in new information. You're making all types of mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go and you practice and you do it on your own for a while, and like you think you understand some things, and then like maybe you get some more training. And a person tells you some things, you get it a little bit better. But then when you finally get to that place where you get to go see someone, you're helping someone else learn it.
Yes.
And you see it happening, and you're like, holy shit! Like that's what I'm doing when I'm messing the thing up. Like, and I can totally see you doing, because it's easier to see mistakes in other people.
Yeah, and that, I forget who was telling me that, but they were saying like before you can really master something, no matter what it is, you really should be teaching it, because that's teaching you as much as it's teaching the other person. It's really the final step in mastering a subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Barrett, what's next for you, man? I mean, you after I saw you, man, I think it was last year, maybe probably about a year ago. I know that we were supposed to go get our woofers, man, down in Florida. You ended up getting your EMT. And I mentioned before, my grandmother ended up passing away like 2 days before we were supposed to go, so I didn't get to go with you. But you were telling me a little bit about, how you ended up getting your woofer the last day before you were going to take your final test. For those of you guys who don't know, woofer, wilderness first aid, first responder, I think it is. And it's kind of a step below EMT, but basically all the same training done in a wilderness setting, a little bit more outside the scope of normal EMT, where the hospital is like 5-10 minutes away. You ended up coming across a woman who passed out at the bar, and she was going into diabetic shock or something like that. Can you tell us just real quick, fill us in, like what happened there? What was going through your mind when you were actually having to utilize all of these medical skills that you had been learning in a real life situation? Because I think that ties in nicely, kind of the mindset that we're talking about here.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you, like, for people who've taken the woofer, like it's. I mean, it's pretty significant. Like it's. Like they give you some scenarios and stuff, and you're going through like you have a lot of role players, right? Like it's like the shoot house of the medical, right?
It's a good analogy.
You roll up, and these people have a story, and like they know where they're hurt, and you got to figure it out. And you have all your checklists, and you got to run through those. But like, so that's all that was really happening. Like we've gone to a bar, and we're having a good time playing darts or something like that. And a lady just passed out at the bar, and like a lot, like we'd been doing this in my mind for like a week or however long. I think it's like 9 days or how long a woofer is. So I was just like, oh, this is another scenario. Like that's what it was to me. Like everyone else in the group kind of shied away from it. They're like, I don't know. I was like, oh, let's just go see what's going on. And, and like there was a couple of hostile drunks around there, but they weren't an issue. And anyways, like, just started seeing what was going on with the lady. And she was on some meds. Like I was able to get some information from her, occasionally, and like what was happening to her, and talking to other people. This has happened to her before, and I was like, oh really? And like, turns out she was diabetic, and it was just basically, as I was gathering the information, it was just a straight up scenario.
Yeah.
I was like, oh well, I was like, do you have any sugar or candy behind the bar? And get me some water, and just gave it to her. And, within a few minutes, she was fine. Sat there and did all the monitoring of the pulse and all that. And she got a ride home, and like she was up talking and all those types of things. I tried to call the ambulance, but they wouldn't call the ambulance at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It may have been a little bit. There were some hotel rooms out back. It was the only bar around. It was a bit of a shady bar, to say the least. But they wouldn't call the police. Like I was like, you need to get. I was like, it's just an ambulance, not the police. Like but they wouldn't let the ambulances come. That's what.
But that ties in so much to like we were just talking about, man. Training. You do it, you do it, you do it, you do it, and then some shit goes down, some shit happens. You don't even think about it. You just do it. It's like in this case, you're running through scenarios. I'm sure, diabetic shock was definitely part of it. And it happens, and you're just treating it the same as you would training. You're going along, you're following your routines, your training. Next thing you know, you've saved the day. You're a hero, so to speak. I mean, in this situation, you were able to get her some candy, help her back out, and even though the cops couldn't come to the shady bar, you were still able to help her out and mitigate the risk that would get even worse. So it was totally worth it. And for all you guys out there, Beret is a smart man. He realizes that this medical training is part of your tactical training. It's part of your martial training, to be able to help yourself, to be able to help your buddy out, whether that's your battle buddy or just in everyday life. It's so key and it's so important. And I'm glad, Beret, that you were able to go and experience, more training outside of just that one area of, combatives, whether that's rifle craft, pistol craft, small unit tactics, hand-to-hand combatives. But you were able to go and get some more medical training. I know you said you got dive certified as well, and you've been kind of on this mission of self-perfection and growth, personal growth through warrior skill sets, which is just so admirable, man. I can't tell you enough how much I admire that in a person, to be able to say, I'm going to go full bore at this and develop myself through this martial way of thinking, this martial way of training and living. How does it feel to have been living as a straight up warrior for the past year and a half, roughly? Do you feel any different?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, my mindset has changed massively. Like I said, I thought I was coming down here to I had some ideas. Like I knew I was coming with the mindset. That was the main thing, but I didn't know what that meant. Like I thought that meant that I was definitely wanting more discipline. Some ways I got more, some ways I got less.
Sure.
But I thought it was all physical. Right? I thought it was all like I will be the master gun handler dude.
Yeah.
Like that's and I can't say that I haven't progressed massively, because I have. Like the things that I could do before were minimal, and the things that I can do now on a scale are pretty high, right? But the mindset, like dealing with all the stuff that was preventing me from achieving my goals, preventing me from having the right attitude to solve my problem.
Yes.
Right? That's the growth that occurred. Yeah. So like those are the things. So I got what I wanted. I just couldn't understand what it was I wanted.
And that's something I've heard from many individuals before they go into a situation like this, where they're spending massive amounts of time developing their martial skills, is that I knew what I wanted before I went in. I knew that I wanted to become a better warrior and develop my martial skills, but I didn't realize beforehand how much it would improve my overall character. And it really does. It improves your overall character, especially hanging out with guys, and I won't mention any names just for politeness, respect, and professional courtesy, but hanging out with guys like you and I know from Tactical Response, who live this every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, who are special forces guys and this and that and this, it rubs off on you. And it ultimately makes you a more efficient person and a better person. And forget the warrior stuff out the window, but it improves your psychology like tenfold. And that's like something you were saying you could never have really anticipated, but it makes me smile when I hear that, because I hear that from so many different guys, whether it's special forces bros, even guys in the police academy, or just guys, like you and I, who on the civilian side of things have been doing this professionally, so to speak. You could never guess how much of how much it will improve your character. But I love hearing you say that. So, are you going to continue your martial training? Are you going to slow down a little bit, focus on other things? What's next for you?
Right now I'm doing the Flow Genome Project. So one of the things that has prevented me from succeeding in the past has been I burned myself out quickly. I haven't had a good base, a way to stabilize and maintain energy and stamina through projects. And I experienced it in my year of fighting. Like I went in and I trained for like a few months to get in shape, lost a bunch of weight, did burpees every other day, yoga 2 or 3 times a week, eating right, doing keto, training with my plates on, things like that to get ready for it. And then I went and trained for like 2 or 3 months straight, a couple of contractor classes, a couple of way of right, bunch of classes back to back to back. Just burnt myself out.
Yeah.
And so that's something. So that's kind of what I'm learning now, is how to maintain myself and not just go in 100%, but be able to maintain a high level all the way through. And so yeah, my next projects are working on. Still going to do some training down here for sure, but one of the things I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out a way to whittle down that 20,000 hours for enlightenment. If there's a methodology to make that quicker.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of like that's what I do on a daily basis. I have a routine where I do like ice baths. I do a sauna. I do meditation. I do 3 or 4 breath techniques. So that's like my power hour. I try to get all that done in an hour or 2. So that's way to increase flow. And then I'm working on some old artistic projects that I needed to get done from back in the day, and animation that I wanted to always create back in the day. Just kind of explains my worldview and future and where I think we're going. And I'm working on making my own pair of pants.
You're making your own pair of pants.
Well, I mean, I'm not making them myself, but I'm working on a pair of pants. So I do all this weird stuff, right? Like I do yoga, exercise, and I want to wear workout pants,
right?
Because I carry a gun, right? Like I carry a gun, and I do my yoga, I do my ice bath. Everywhere I go, I have a gun on.
Sure.
And there's just not a good way to carry a gun in a pair of workout.
Yeah, I've come across that problem myself, man. So what's your solution? I mean, I know guys like the smart holster, where it's like down by your balls. Some guys like even a shoulder holster. What do you do?
Well, right now I've sewn some belt loops onto workout pants, and then I wear a belt with my workout pants.
Interesting. Okay.
And because nothing changes there, but there's a lot of issues with just that method. Like it works, but I also carry a medical kit on my ankle. Because I think if you have a thing to poke holes, you should have a thing to plug holes.
Sure.
You're probably going to use the thing that plugs the holes more often than you do the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you know, having the legs big enough. There's just like little features on the pants that I've come across. I've gone through 2 or 3 iterations of what I want, what I don't want. I don't want to bring freaking 4 flashlights, 6 knives, like 2 guns and freaking 8 mags into the gym. But having like my keys, my pocket knife, and a freaking cell phone and my gun. Like those are and maybe a wallet. Like those are requirements of just going places.
Sure. And you don't really want to carry a little 380, little pocket gun. You want to carry your big Glock 19 or something like that, or?
Yeah. So I mean, I carry the 19 or 26, 1 to 2, just because that's what I've trained with.
Sure.
And it's reliable.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir, man. Glock is the best weapon ever designed and invented.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Kind of where I'm at on all that is, like, all I hear is, you're carrying a gun. Like, that's good.
Yes.
That's kind of where I am with all that. I can argue about which one you should be carrying, all those things. But,
hey, it's a gun. It goes bang and it shoots a bullet out. That's what matters.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple I'd be like, I don't know about that. It's probably a bigger problem. But yeah.
So you're coming out with these tactical workout pants, which actually I'm pretty curious to see once you get the final design ready. I might like to pick up a pair myself. I assume you're probably going to be working with some people that we both know down there that also make other tactical stuff.
No, I've talked to him over there. He's not interested in pants.
Okay.
So he wears shorts all the time.
Right, he does, yeah. And
he's got like his machines don't work for that type of material and those types of things.
Got it.
But it's more kind of where I'm at right now. Is I want a pair of pants.
And that's how all of the best inventions get made, man. You've got a problem, you want a pair of fucking tactical workout pants, and there's none out there that are good, so you make your own. I'm curious, man. Like, once you get that final design, let me know. I might know some people that want to invest in that, actually. So.
All right, yeah, they're still getting it to where I can. I'm not wearing them right now, so that's where I want to be.
Listen, Barrett, you and I could go back and forth talking about all kinds of shit, like a whole 3 hours longer, I'm sure. I'm going to cut it about here because for sake of my computer and just for sake of the tactical podcast, I don't want it to run ultra long. But let me ask you this before I let you go. Would you be willing to come back on at some point, not only to update us on the tactical pants, but talk more about the meditation, the mindset, stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Awesome, man. I'd love to have you back on because we haven't even scratched the surface as far as a lot of this subject matter goes. When you were going and talking about your stuff, man, I just kept thinking of question, but I think that's going to be best left for another podcast. Can I ask you this, man? How do guys who want to learn maybe a little bit more about meditation, tactical breathing, stuff like that, how can guys get in touch with you if they want to learn more about this stuff?
So my email's Leslie, BLESLIE, at ballinks, BALLINKS.com.
Great. And I'll throw that up on the screen right here for guys. And don't be afraid to go ahead and reach out to Beret. He is a man full of knowledge, information, and resources as well. For those of you out there in and around Tennessee, I would highly recommend either getting in touch with Beret if you haven't trained at Tactical Response before. Beret is probably the best man to ask about the courses. For those of you all around the world, Tactical Response will accept people pretty much from all around the world. I've trained with foreign people there many times myself, and I'm sure Beret has met a few. But in any case, if you're not freaking training at Tactical Response and you want to get the best training, then you're fucking wrong. You should be getting in touch with those guys and getting some training because they are some of the best in the world. And Beret, any closing thoughts before we sign off here, man? Anything that you want to throw out there? See if it sticks to the wall, so to speak?
no, it's not my saying or whatever, but there's this. If you're going along the tactical side, I don't know where it came from. I think that Andy guy on
Okay.
a T-shirt, so it's got to be true.
Yeah.
But it says, the final weapon is the mind. So that's kind of like the idea.
The final weapon is the mind. I like that.
First and the
I like that. Cool, man. Well, dude, I really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to having you back on in the future, bro. So, all right, guys.
Cool,
hey, you too, man. All right, guys. Please remember that you are your first and last line of defense. I thank you for listening to this podcast, and stand by. We've got more cool shit coming down the pipeline for you. Until next time, cheers, Mother Flowers.